Okay, so the assignment was last session assignment was to count the number of prime numbers between 1 to 1000, and also we have to write a regular expression to find out the date, month, and year from a given string, right? That's basically the stuff. Okay, so Abhishek, did you get a chance to work on that also?
Yes, Siddharth. Prime number I could not do. I got the source from uh, on net only
No,
because
it is incorrect. No, if you just give the date, I can see like if you have given, it should start with 2. It's not necessary.
one thing, two places are there. Just go a little bit up.
Can't access. Okay, where?
Yeah, this one.
Okay, but this one is also incorrect. If I give this also, no, still it will work. Give me point. Anybody else get a chance to work on that? Work on this?
Yeah, Siddharth. Actually, I have tried. I can show you my code, but actually, I haven't gone through your video directly. I have tried, so I think some mistake is there. It is not coming. Other condition it is showing. Can you check it?
Yeah, can you put it on? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is the correct one only.
I have also put that in.
Yeah, I got it. This is the correct one. So what we have to do now, we have to use this way. But again, here the way what you have mentioned, no, here you can't get the separate date, month, year separately. Means
Yes,
this pattern is correct. Okay, this pattern is correct. Means
yeah, that group part I was not able to do. I was trying, yeah, but I did not complete that part.
so what Kishore has written, like first slash t 2 times, then hyphen, then again slash t 2 times, again hyphen, again you have mentioned slash t 4 times. Okay, this is how it should be. Okay, then you can give to date and this way. Okay, so also partial guarantee, and how to extract the group part. Anybody worked on that group part? And if you not show interest, then I will not give much assignment. Okay, because see a lot of programs to do. Like assignments are for you only. You should work on that. If you not show interest, then I will also give less assignments. This is weekend, means we don't have any excuse that we'll not be able to. We didn't get time and all this, right? Manosis, did you get a chance to complete this? Sandeep?
Yeah, so I tried this.
I have pinged you. You just check that code.
Where, in Zoom or in WhatsApp?
No, in Zoom privately I have given.
No, I can't.
No, Abhishek. Oh, sorry. I have given to Abhishek. Wait, 1 second. Yeah.
Okay, so that then match pattern. No, again, like you didn't extract the group part. Means I just want to get the date part separately, month part separately, year part separately. That part is not, you have not implemented that.
Okay.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Sandeep, did you get a chance to work on this?
I shared in the chat, but somehow I was not able to get that separately, though I was using grouping for each 2 bytes. And
You have, I can see you have used the group, but you could have like tried to extract the date part also.
In the result, if it is matching, I'm again doing that re.search with the pattern one and the different pattern and with the date of birth, and I'm using the group.
Mhm.
But still I wasn't able to get that separately. Still I was getting the same string as date of birth. The first pattern is to check the format. That is, it should start with two integers and end with that four integer, like the similar pattern, DDMMYY. So the second pattern is to group the two, I mean, date separately, year separately, and month separately. And I was using group to extract separately, but still I was getting that hyphen in the result.
Try this. Let's see.
I think, do we need to use the split command or something like that?
No, not split. You have to make use of this group part. Date pattern found inside. So date is okay. Date is what I just mentioned. Date, comma, result on group 0. Okay, it's taking the entire thing here.
We have other thing also, right? Groups.
Okay, now it's working. So this is the date. This is the month. It's like it's 10 minutes effort. Like, again, this is how you're getting date 29, month 1, year 1988. Okay, so you have given, so if you don't take the group part, by default, like you could have mentioned in this way. If you don't consider the group, generally the pattern matching is this. You mentioned 2 digit, then hyphen, then again another 2 digit, then hyphen. Mention in this way. So it will basically do the proper date matching. So we are saying start with 2 digit, ends with 4 digit, it's hyphen and all. Okay, so here if you just see like, but if you want to, so this will also work. Okay, this pattern will also work to validate a date. But here the point is basically I want to get the date, month and year separately. That's why I've used this grouping. Okay, these groupings are used with this parenthesis only. So the basis the number of groups, you have to put that in number of parentheses. Okay, so that's what we have done here. Okay, then we are basically calling that when we are basically saying that regular expression dot match, we are giving the pattern and the test string. Then basically from that result you can extract group 1, group 2, group 3. Okay, that's the assignment was. Okay, so anyways, what was the other assignment?
Prime number 1 to 1000.
Count a prime number. Did you get a chance to work on that?
Iterations here.
Sorry?
Iterations here.
Here you have written. You could have like create a separate file, no? You mess up the existing code later when you just refer, you'll get confused, right?
I go to bottom.
Sorry?
Go to bottom. This is I referred from Google.
Fine, but you understood or not?
And go to a little bit up.
Hmm.
Yes. Here I was trying to create. See, I did something about like you could create a list where you can keep the values 1 to 1000.
Sorry.
1 to 1000. First, I need to take that string as an input.
Hmm.
So to achieve that, you remove this print output. You remove this hash one. So initially I created the list. On the list, I could not think about how to iterate on each and every number so that I get the prime number. So this is the another solution. It's working fine. It's a right solution.
I don't know what you have written. Simple thing, like you could have like tried, like we have. Can someone tell me like what's the logic? Viharika, can you tell me what are the steps? Anybody? Kishore? What is prime number? What's the definition of prime number?
Number which divides by itself.
Every number is divisible by itself.
The number which could only be divided by 1 and itself. Other than that, it cannot. It will not give you what do you call it will give you decimal uh, result.
Yeah, so basically number having two divisibles, that is basically called prime number. So I'm defining a function, say it's prime. Okay. And this function should take one parameter, that is as and num. Okay. So let's divide and conquer. Okay. So first write a functions so that should take one parameter and it should return true or false, saying whether it's a prime number or not. Okay. So and we have basically logic is basically, so it should be having only two multiples. Okay, not more than that. If a number is having only two multiples, then we are saying this is prime number. So 2 is having multiples 1 and 2, 3 1 and 3, 4 1 2 4. That there are three multiples, so it's not possible. It's not a prime number. It's a composite number, right? So similarly, 5 is a prime number, 1 and 5, 6, 1 2 3 6, 4 multiples are there. So that's why it's not a prime number, right? So you have to basically count the number of multiples, right? So I'm saying say multiples is equal to 0. Okay. So then what I'm doing, so for I in range say 1 to num plus 1, right? I to num plus 1 means I'm trying to iterate, I'm trying to divide 1 2 3 4 up to, suppose I'm passing the number 5. So I'll be dividing it I'll be dividing 1 means 5 by 1, 5 by 2, 5 by 3, 5 by 4, 5 by 5. All I want to check, I'm saying if what do you call, I, you are basically modular division percentile, right? Anybody remember?
Yeah.
Percentile, right? Used for modulo. Equal to 0. Means if when you divide that number with 1, if the remainder is 0, then you are basically incrementing that, right? Mul plus equal to 1, multiply plus multiples plus equal to 1, right? So then you come outside, if then you basically simply mention return what, like mul equal to 2, right? That's basically the logic what I'm trying to implement. Say print, I'm testing, say is prime, I'm passing 7. It's saying true. I'm passing 70. False, right? This is what the first step. First step, I should write a function that should take a number input and it should say like whether that number is a prime number or not. Now my second part is basically iterate between 1 to 1000 and check
So,
like,
Siddharth, why you have returned mul equal to 2?
like I'm just checking like whether number of multiples is equal to 2 or more than this. Take the example of 7. 7, I'm just iterating from 1 to 7 and I'm dividing 7 by 1, 7 by 2, 7 by 3. Every time it's divisible, then multiply number of multiples is incremented to 1.
Yeah.
For 7, it's only 1 modular division, sorry, 7 modular division 1 is equal to 0, 7 modular division 7 equal to 0. But rest of the things, it's not, remainder is not 0. So it will be number of multiples is equal to 2 only. But if you pass
Okay.
10 is divisible by like 10 modular division 1 is 0, 2 modular division 10, 0, 10 modular division 5, 0, 10 modular division 10, 0. Means for 4 times, that means this multiples count is equal to 4. Okay, then in that case, it will return false. Okay, 4 equal to true, no, false. Okay, so whenever it is true, then only I'm returning true, else it is false. That's the whole idea.
2 because it is divisible by itself and 1. That's why you have given it 2, right?
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
That's the definition of
Yeah. No, I was wondering why this 2. That's what.
that's basically because the
Yeah.
number of multiples. Just checking. Then again, you can just count, say, counter is equal to 0, and then I'm again for I in range 1 to 1001 because it will basically take the last number is not considered here. Inside that, I'm just calling if h prime I is it return true or false. If it is true, then I'm saying prime counter plus equal to 1. Then I'm just coming outside, I'm just printing see. You can basically use any what you call any code you can Google search and use. But while explaining, you shouldn't say like means I just Google searched it and these are the answers and all, because see, that's not the whole objective of assignments. Means you should try like, yeah, if you don't understand, like means you can anyway we take Google help, but we should understand this. Okay, when we are explaining, should we the steps should be mentioned. Otherwise, like I can also Google search and I can show. That's not the objective. We have learned iterations. We have learned if-else statement. We have learned a little bit of functions also, and now we are basically trying to exercise it. Okay, to understand like how comfortably we are into this fields. That's what we are basically trying to understand. Right. That's the whole objective of assignments. What happened? Yeah, 168 count. That's basically the logic here. Okay. So now let's go to the next. So these are the assignments, right? Let's go to the next or any other assignment. Okay, I think that's all, right?
That's all. Yeah.
Pratap, mute me, please.
Sorry?
Mute me.
Sorry?
I'm unmute. Please mute me.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing is basically what we'll be discussing is functions, right? We have discussed till iterations and all. So functions, let's see what are the different part of functions. Okay. So let's start with the functions part. So function is what? The definition of function is it's a reusable piece of code, isn't it? It's a reusable piece of code. You have certain logic you want to implement or you have to use again and again. Just like here you saw, we are basically trying to count the number of prime numbers between 1 to 1000. So you can write that logic 1000 times, or you define that piece of code as or define that logic as a function and then call it 1000 times. Okay, you have both the options. Okay, if you're defining a function, that means you can make call to that function multiple times. Okay, here, so in every other programming language, a function, how it looks like, a function is having a signature. It says the function name and the input parameters. Okay, you can pass 0 or more parameters, and a function can return something, or return value is also optional. Okay. Okay, return value is also optional. Okay, so basically you can a function basically looks like that way. So you can define a function. That function has a function signature, that is def keyword, then the function name, and within parentheses you mention the list of parameters. But it's not mandatory. A function can be having no parameters also. And then the function return value. Okay? Then you write the function body. Okay, whatever the logic you want to implement, that is called the function body. And then you return some value. Return value is also optional. You can think of if you require, you can return some value. If you don't, you can skip that also. So here, if you see, this function has a name called isPrime, and it's taking a parameter num. Okay, and post that you can see this is the function body. Okay, this is the function body, line number 3 to 6, and then line number 7 is the return value. Okay, you are returning something from this particular function. 1 second. Okay. So that's basically the logic here. And here you can see, like I have defined, first line I have defined a function set def say hello, and this function takes a variable called name, and it returned the value called hello, then space plus name plus this exclamation symbol. Means basically you are trying to return some value, return a string from this particular function. Okay, and so this function has been called here itself. I have just called that function here in line number 8. Okay, suppose that I've defined again another function, say hello again. Here I passed name equal to Rosit. Okay, this is called a function defined with some default value. Okay, so when you are calling this function, you can think of passing some value, or you can skip that also. Okay, so when you are declaring a variable equal to some value, that means this function takes one parameter name, that is a type string, and it has some default value called Rosit. Okay, if you feel like you can pass some value while calling, or you can skip that also. In that case, the default value will be taken. Here we have used f. Okay, f within double quote, we have mentioned this part. Okay, this is a Python 2 feature. Like you can basically write a string and you can put multiple placeholders there. Okay, here within curly braces, you have mentioned name because name is the parameter name here. Okay, so when you called say hello Pratik, so this function is being called. Just let me know if anybody having any confusion. Just feel free to interrupt me. So say hello is a function that you're passing Pratik. Pratik is coming here. Name is now assigned to Pratik, and it's returning hello Pratik exclamation symbol. If you just see the output, it's saying hello Pratik, and there is an exclamation symbol. Then again, you are calling print say hello again, and you are passing Pratik. Okay, that means say hello again is this function only, and you are passing Pratik. Okay, in that case, this default value object will be overridden with the value Pratik. Okay, that's why it's again returning the return hello Pratik exclamation symbol. It's again printing the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
Siddharth, what is that dir? Oh, no, 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 that is comment, sorry.
No,
Okay, okay.
it's the wrong
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, got
basically, you
it, got it.
can so here you can call this function by passing a value, and that's the hello function. Like you can pass a string, and this string is basically being passed here. And here basically say hello again. Again, this function is being called by passing this Pratik. So name is assigned with Pratik, so it's returning hello Pratik exclamation symbol. And the third time, when what you did, you just called say hello again without passing any parameter. Okay, you just call say hello again without passing any parameters. So in that case, so you have the default value. Once again. Okay, so in say hello again, so what we have done, we didn't pass any value. So say hello again is been called, though there is a parameter name is there, but still since we didn't pass any value, so this default value will be picked up. So it's returning hello result. Okay, it's printing that. So that is basically a simple thing what we are saying, like a one-liner function, a function with a parameter and a return value. And here you saw like string concatenation and how string concatenation can be replaced with format specifier f within double quote or string with multiple placeholders. Okay, that is there. And the next thing is basically what we can see here. Next thing what we can see here is basically we have defined again another function called multiply which takes two parameters. So here you can see what we are doing. Inside this function, we are not returning any value. Rather, what we are doing here, we have written this text here. Okay, this string. The earlier approach you saw, we have used f. Okay, f within double quotes in the string with placeholder. But here, what we have done, so we have used dot format. Both are one and same only. Okay, so both are one and same only. So this format function came in the Python 3, and f is basically part of Python 2. So if cross compatibility is there, you can use that. Here basically line number 15, you are saying you are written a string, first placeholder, second placeholder, third placeholder. You are mentioning within curly braces 0 multiplied by placeholder 1 equal to placeholder 3 dot format. Since you have three placeholders, you have to pass three values. First, you pass this a, whatever passed into this function. Similarly, second parameter is b, third parameter is a times b. Okay, so that means when you are calling this function, you can see multiply 2 comma 4. So you can see it's printing that also. Okay, it's also printing that value. It's printing 2 times 4 is equal to 8 in the console, because that's what you have printed in line number 15. Okay, in the line number 15, you have mentioned first parameter times second parameter is equal to a times b. Okay, just printing, like formatting strings and printing them. That's the thing what I'm showing you. Yeah. Second thing, you can see line number 18. You call this function by explicitly specifying the parameter name. That is also allowed. Okay, when we are calling multiply, we are saying a equal to 2 comma b equal to 4. That is also allowed here in Python. Okay, both are doing the same thing. Multiply 2 4 is exactly same as multiply a equal to 2 and b equal to 4. Okay, only the difference is since you have two parameters a and b, so you can call this without the parameter name. In that case, by default, these are positional. 2 will be assigned to a and 4 will be assigned to 4 always. But when you are referring the variable name or the parameter name explicitly, you can change that sequence also. It's no more positional. The moment you mention a equal to 2, it will search is there any parameter called a, so it will assign that with 2. Is there any parameter b, it will assign it with 4. Okay, line number 18 and 19 exactly same. Okay, you are basically calling that function by explicitly calling the parameter name,
So since you have access to this parameter names, you can reverse that sequence. You can give any sequence. Okay. So when you are, so what's the benefit here? Suppose a function which is taking many parameters, you don't know, you don't remember the sequence of the parameters in which order you have to call this, or in which order you have to pass that. So you don't have to worry. You can just pass. You can call this function by explicitly calling out their name also. Okay, you can explicitly call their parameters name and you can pass this value. Okay, that's the whole reason you can call a function by explicitly specifying the parameter name. Okay, in all these cases you are getting the same output. And now what you can see, line number 21. It's an interesting thing what you can see in other programming languages. This option is also there in C programming, Java, Scala, everywhere it is there. In those languages it is called variable length argument. Okay, here also it is working as the same thing, but it's called unpacking operator. Star is called unpacking operator. So when you're calling def, you have defined a function called positional argument sum, and you specified star integers. Okay, they call star integers. That means you should be able to pass 0 or n number of integers to this particular function. Okay, so when you are calling positional arg sum, you can pass n number of integers. You can call this function without passing any parameters. You can call this function by passing multiple integers also. So what we are doing inside, so what we are doing here, so what we are doing here, so you can see like print. Okay, so we are saying like print args Python argument tuple integers. It's first printing it. Okay, and then what you're doing, result equal to 0, and then you iterate through each and every element. So it becomes, it's a iterable, it's a iterator. You are iterating for x in integers, then you are basically summing it up, result equal to result plus x, then you are returning the result. Okay, so in line number 29 we call this function positional argument sum 1 2 3, and we are calling this function by passing 1 2 3. Okay, so you can see you have passed 3 integers to this. So now integers is now being assigned with, so that means you are calling positional arguments by passing three integers, 1 comma 2 comma 3. Then you are iterating and then you are summing them up. Okay, that's what we are doing. So you can see so what it is doing, first it's printing in line number 23, we are printing input args Python. So that means it's basically what value you're passing there, it's basically going there as a tuple. Okay, we'll come to that tuple in some time. So here basically all these 3 integers 1 2 3 are passed as a tuple, and then you are basically summing it up. Okay, positional argument sum of this is equal to, is printing the value is 6, 1 plus 2 plus 3, that is 6. 6 is being returned, and here it is printing that. Similarly, you can see in line number 30, I called that same function without passing any parameter. That is also fine. Okay, it's printing like int args Python argument tuple, which you have printed in line number 23. It's printing an empty tuple. Okay, tuple having no element. Okay, and it's summing it up. Since result equal to 0, it will be iterate. It will not iterate anytime because you have passed no elements. So the return value is 0, so it's printing 0 here. Just remember, like when you want to write a function which can take more than one parameters, more than one string, more than one integer, you can make use of the star unpacking operator. Okay, star unpacking operator is used to accept 0 to n number of values for that particular function parameters. Okay, that's the whole idea. And apart from that, what you can see, there is again another parameter called double star. Okay, one star you saw, that is called unpacking operator. Then when you pass a double star means you are passing key value pair. Okay, or basically you can say dictionary. You are passing named parameters. Okay, there you just passed positional parameters. You pass 1 2 3, so they are going into the exact same positions. It's creating a tuple having all these elements. Tuple elements can be accessed with 0 1 2 index like that. So you are accessing the elements in that way. But here basically you're passing the parameters as named parameters. Okay, a name equal to some value, a name equal to some value, like in that method. Let's see the example. So again, it's printing that. So inside this function, you are printing like input this Python. So it's basically there you saw it, the value is being accepted as a tuple, but when you are using double star, the value is being accepted as a dictionary. Okay, dict, and it's printing that first, and then it's iterating for k comma v in input params dot items. Okay, to basically extract the items, you have to call dot items. Okay, so dictionary is having a function called items, so it will give you all these key value pairs. Then you're just printing k arrow operator v. Okay, so what you did here, in line number 48 you call that function. Okay, in line number 48 you call this function, you passed parameter 1 equal to a list of 1, parameter 2 equal to list of 2, parameter 3 equal to list of 3, 1 2 3. Okay, so you can see like the first time, so what it did, so here you printed input star KWARGS Python this dictionary, then you mention this, so it's printing the entire thing dictionary, and then it's printing param1 colon this. That is how the dictionary looks like. If you remember, we have seen last session also, we are implementing a switch statement in this way. So key colon value like that. So you can see the parameter what you sent it input pass, it's printing that in this way. So in curly braces key colon value like that. Par 1 is the key, value is the list of 1. Part 2 is the key, value is the list of 2. Part 3 is the key, value is 1, list of 1, 2, 3. Okay, then you are iterating them and printing them in line number 36 and 37. So you are printing par 1, arrow operator, then value 1, that is star, that is list of 1. Similarly, list of 2, list of 3, like that. These are very, very important. Okay, and whenever you are implementing any function, this is very flexible. You can see you can pass n number of parameters to a function, because end of the day it's a key value pair only. You can write a function, any complex function you can write, and sometimes what happens, we mentioned some function, but later we just realize, yeah, let's pass another value also to that function. In that case, you have to always keep on changing the function signature. But here, what you can see here, you have the flexibility to pass multiple parameters also. You can pass them as a positional parameters, like you mentioned star xyz or star parameters, and you can access the elements through different index, like pass square bracket 0, pass square bracket 1. Like you can access different index from that particular tuple. Or else you can define a function that takes a whole bunch of key value pair or a dictionary. Okay, in that case you can access them through their name. Okay, so in data frame and all, it's used extensively. All these examples you will see there also. Okay, so any query here? Any
Is
confusion in this?
item a keyword, Siddharth?
Items is a function. In line number 36 or something.
Yes, 30.
Yeah, it's a function in dictionary. Okay, we'll come to collections shortly. In collections, we will see like in dictionary class, we have a function called items to get all these list of key value pairs.
Okay, got it. Thank
you. Yarika, are you good? You're not asking anything?
Yeah, I'm good, Siddharth.
Are you also working on the assignments?
Yeah, I'm working on it, Siddharth.
Okay, feel free to just interrupt me. Okay, nothing to hesitate, nothing to shy
Yeah,
out.
sure.
Okay, just let's work on the answers. That's how only we'll learn. Okay, so next concept is basically lambdas. Okay, so function or anonymous functions. Here you saw a function is having proper signature of def keyword, function name, parameters, everything is there. But here, just like since it's a functional, Python is also functional programming language. It has this anonymous function concept also. You can pass, you can basically define a function as a lambda. So here you mentioned my function is equal to lambda x comma y colon x times y. You have seen this kind of functions multiple times there in RTD. You call reduce function, inside reduce function or reduce by key function, you pass lambda n1 comma n2, then colon n1 plus n2 like that. So here basically you have defined a function or a lambda, and its objective is to multiply two numbers. Okay, then you called print myfunc 2 comma 3. Okay, similarly here you can just printing 6 for the output. Then post that what we did, here we have defined my list. This is a different type of syntax what you can see. This is called comprehension. Okay, we'll come to that in the collection chapter. Comprehension is collection or some other. I think it should be there in the collections only. Let's see where it. No, I think it's there only. So here basically you have seen this example. Okay, this part you are aware. Like for I in range 10, you can mention 0 to 10, or you can directly mention 10 also. So in that case, what it will do, it will keep on iterating I, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9. Okay, that's the thing. That's the way. Sorry, 0, 1. So if you mention range 10, it will start from 0. Okay, so it will be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9. Okay, so then basically if you just wrap this expression inside a square bracket, it will create a list for you. Okay, I for I in range of 10. So it will basically keep on emitting numbers. This highlighted part will keep on emitting numbers. First time 0, then 1, then 2 up to 9. It will keep on emitting numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9. And this, every time it's emitting a value, that will be capped by this I, and you just wrapped it inside a square bracket. So it will create a list of all 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9. Okay. Now what you did, you have defined a function lambda x colon x times x, that means you are calculating the square of that number. And then what you are doing, you are saying squares. Then you have then see here is a different syntax. It's a little tricky syntax, and these are worth knowing. So here you can see I have just called map function. Okay, I've called map function, and inside map function I'm passing this function comma this list. Okay, just remember this. You can recollect RDD dot map. Then you are passing some function, isn't it? RDD dot map. You are passing str split like that. So here what you are doing, you are calling map function. You can just observe this part. You are calling map function. Inside map function, you are passing one function as well as collection. So what it will do, it will apply these functions to each and every element of this list. Okay, it will basically map. It will apply this myfunc to each and every element of my list. Okay, and then you are wrapping it inside the list. So the output of this highlighted expression will be created as a list. Okay, in line number 21, you saw one syntax to create a list. That syntax is called comprehension. You are using the concept of comprehension to basically mention this to basically create a list. Okay, for I in range 10, it will keep on emitting numbers 0, 1, 2 up to 9. That is being assigned to I, and I is wrapped inside square bracket. So it will basically take all these elements and create a list. Okay, then you are saying myfunc. You are creating a function that is to calculate the square here, and then you are basically calling map function. You are applying this my functions to each and every element of list, and then you passed it inside list. Okay, and then you are printing it. So it's printing 0, 1, 4, 9 in square of 0 till 9. Okay, that's the whole idea.
Siddharth, is this map only applicable for list or any type of data type?
Any collection. Okay, this my function, you have defined a function that is being applied to each and every element of list. You can try with any collection, dictionary, set, tuple, anything you can just give it a try.
Okay.
Okay, so now in line number 30, we have defined a function called calculate. Okay, and this calculate function takes three parameters, f, comma x, comma y. It takes three parameters, and this function returns f of x, comma y. This is called higher order function or function as a argument. So you can see this function takes three parameters, f, x, y, and it returns f of x and y. So this particular thing looks like you're making a function call, isn't it? You're making a function call. Okay, and that's how you make a function call. No? You just call map function here in line number 25. You pass two parameters, my phone, comma my list. It also looks like this. F, you're passing two parameters x and y. Okay. Now let's see. I have defined another function called add. Add function takes two parameters x, comma y, and it returns x plus y. It's calculating the sum of these two numbers. And I have defined another subtract function here. Define subtract x, comma y. It calculates the difference between these two numbers. Now here you see I called this calculate function and I pass add here. Add comma 10 comma 20. You can see I'm passing the function name. I'm not calling this function. Calling the function means you will see I'll be calling this function in this way. But here that's not the objective. Here basically I'm passing the function name. I defined a function called add which takes two parameters. So I'm passing that function name comma two integer values because calculate function takes a function and two int and it takes three parameters. X and y can be anything, but since I mentioned f here means f of x and y, that means it looks like f is a function. So I passed add. Okay, and you can't pass any random function. You can't just pass a function that adds five integers to three integers. You should pass only that function which basically takes two parameters. Getting my point? So here basically it's add function takes two parameters. If you just pass add function here, so f will be replaced by add. Okay, that means, but it should take only two parameters, x, comma y. Okay, but if you just define function add x, y, comma z, then when this f will be replaced by this add function, it will be expecting three parameters, but it's actually having two, so it will fail. Okay, that thing we need to remember whenever we are calling this. These are called higher order function taking another function as a parameter. Okay, when you are defining this function, you have to be very careful. So what function you have to pass, it completely depends upon the structure of that particular function. In line number 31, we are calling f by passing two parameters. So you can pass any function which takes two parameters. That's the whole idea. You can pass any functions to calculate which has two parameters. That's why you have defined intentionally defined add and subtract. These are two functions, and these two functions take two parameters only. Okay, so then you are calling line number 42. You are calling add calculate add 10 comma 20. So it should be 30. Okay, it should return 30 and it should print. That's what it's printing, add 30. And similarly, you are calling subtract like calculate subtract 10 comma 20. It's printing minus 10 like that. So here you saw like we are defining functions separately and passing, but you can opt for passing lambda also. You can see you have called calculate and you pass a function lambda x comma y x plus y, then 10 20, then lambda x comma y x minus y 10 comma 20. Okay, you can use both the syntax. You can define a function separately and pass it inside, or you can directly pass a lambda also. Okay, that's the whole idea of higher order function, and you saw RDD is completely packed with this higher order function. Getting my point? So all these concepts are there. Okay, all these concepts are there here in Python, and the same thing you saw there in RDD also. Okay, so everything is actually intentional. You can think of, because of these features only, Python is one of the languages you can use to program Spark. Okay, so Spark has been defined in that way, and you saw Spark's library that RDD has whole bunch of higher order functions, and you can see Python core Python is also having similar functions. Okay, that's why you can also program Spark using Python language. Okay, they didn't use all these languages, rather they picked up only Java, Python and all, because they are pretty much similar. Okay, they're compliant with Spark libraries. That's one of the reason you can see, or another reason is basically they are popular languages. So that's why the objective of this framework is more and more people should use it. Then only things will be more interesting. More people can contribute to this particular project. Okay, so this is another type of example. Then this is some random example I just mentioned here. Structural programming, increment x, return x plus 1, just a function that just increment that value to 1, and then you are saying a line of 55, you are calling increment each, and you mention empty list here, and you are iterating through each and every element, assuming you are passing a list or so inside, and you're calling result. Okay, result is a list as a function called append. You are appending increment element. Okay, so that means elements is an list you are passing. Okay, so you are iterating all these elements, and you basically whatever number, suppose you pass 1 2 3, it will be 2 3 4, like that. It will keep on appending and sending. And the idea here is basically you define one function here. The whole requirement of this particular function is you can define one function and implement all this logic. Okay, by looking at this function, what it looks like, you are passing a list of integers and you are trying to increment each of these elements to 1. You can write the logic here. You can directly mention dot append element plus 1. Okay, but instead what you did, you define a separate function called increment x and you called it inside. This is called like you have a bigger function and you are breaking into smaller pieces and making use of that. So that's the whole idea of any programming language. You saw like pretty much all these functions in RDDs also. It's not like a single function written. So function has been written and you have an option to pass some custom logic. Map is a function. The objective is to iterate through each and every element of RDD, apply some functions to each and every element, and then return that entire return a new RDD back. Okay, that's the whole idea there, isn't it? Now what you're doing? Okay, now what you're doing? You're basically showing you want to apply some operations to each and every element of a list. So you written one function to iterate through each and every list and apply some function to each and every element. So that function, instead of directly writing here, you just parameterize it. You defined a separate function and you're calling that function. Okay, this is called structural programming. Like you define the entire thing, you break the entire logic into smaller pieces as much as possible. Okay, that's basically just the example. Otherwise, syntactically, this is same what we have seen multiple times. Okay, you pass 193, it should return 2103 kind of 2104. Sorry. Okay, you have called here and so this is one way you just use this. And another syntax what you can see here, this is interesting. You call map, okay, same map function we have seen there. You call map function, you passed increment function here and a list also here. What you did, you just called map increment and you passed a list. Okay, that means this increment function will be applied to each and every element 1, 9 and 3. Okay, and then you are converting that. So star operator is an unpacking operator. Okay, so it will actually unpack the element. So you first apply this increment function to each and every element. So then you are unpacking the elements and you are wrapping it inside a list square bracket, you can see. So it will also create a list of 2, 10, 4. Getting my point? You might be wondering what is the star and all. You can remove this. Just experiment, okay? Don't just by heart the program. You can say it's returning a map object. Okay. Then you called unpacking operator you call star. Then let's see what it is doing. So you can see like it's giving individual elements, 3 integers, 2, 10, and 4. Then what you did, you just wrapped it inside a square bracket. That means you just clubbed all these 3 elements as a separate list. Now you can see it's a list of 2, 10, and 4. Okay, these are all examples of comprehension. Okay, so these are very sophisticated way, means Python style of program. You can write functions, you can for loop, while loop, and do all these activities. So here what we are doing, you could have like you could have like written a for loop for I in this particular list. Inside that for loop, you can basically increment it. Okay, I plus 1. Okay, so outside the for loop, you can create a empty list, and inside the for loop, you can keep on appending the elements to that list. That's the way, like you can write a 3-line code. At the same time, that 3 lines of code you can basically implement in this way, a single expression. This is a Python way of writing program. The same program can be written in a very elaborate way, but you can think of using Python's special syntax to implement the same logic with a very minimum coding. Getting a point? Vinay, are you following? Any query?
Yeah, Siddharth, I'm following.
Abhishek, very good. Sorry, I'm unable to unmute you.
That I would have to refer this video. Like most of the things I've seen, but didn't grab.
That kind of functionality, like to limit the function or return type, you can only return integer, string, or tuple.
But yeah, Python is not a strictly typed language. Okay, you can specify the return type. We'll see there are a couple of examples I've created. But Python is not strictly typed language like Java and all. So that's the flexibility is there. That's why we use here. So every time you declare a variable, you don't have to specify the data type. But yeah, we'll see like you have the option to specify the data type also if you want to restrict that. That's also there. But that's the thing. Like we always try to generalize all these languages. Like suppose I spend some time programming Java, I'm learning a new language, I'll try to relate it with Java. So that's a natural tendency. That it becomes easy for us to relate it. In Java, we have 3 loops: for loop, while loop, do while loop. When I start understanding the iterations here in Python, I saw there is only 2 loops: for loop and while loop. There is no do while loop. So in a way, it's good. Like the learning becomes faster. At the same time, if you'll be very strict, like yeah, in Java it is there, like why it is not there? How can I implement that functionality here? That is, if you will learn Python in that way, like it will be little tricky. Like you'll be losing a lot of techniques or flexibility in Python. Okay, so that's there. That's what I learned in a very hard lesson. So since I have used like Java extensively, Scala, Python, all these 3 languages I'm using extensively. That's why sometimes you see like I write the code x equal to 10. Sometimes I write val x equal to 10 because that's the Scala syntax. So that problem happens. But let's use, if you're learning Python, then write the code in Python style. Okay. Anyway, like we'll see how to define the data type also in some examples. But this is all about your function and lambdas and all. Okay. Now let's go to the next example, that is called collections. In collection, let's start with list first. Okay. So list is basically a collection of elements where the elements are stored in different indices. Okay, different index. So basically list is a mutable collection. Mutable means you can change the content. You can add, remove, replace elements, and all these things you can do. So here we have created a list called weekdays. Okay, so weekdays is a list having all these 5 weekdays: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday up to Friday. weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So basically weekdays, you can see like we have two lists we have created. One is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday up to Friday, and another is Saturday and Sunday. So how can basically, there are a couple of options. So what we are trying to see, we are trying to see how to create lists and what are the operations available in this. Okay, we have two lists and how to append them. Okay, how to append, you can say merge. How to merge two lists. So you can simply use plus operator. Okay, you can use plus operator. So you can see if you hover on plus, it's saying actually the function name is underscore underscore add underscore underscore. That's the beauty of Python. You can see we feel like it's not object oriented, but it's a functional programming language. But if you see the implementation, everything is object oriented. Okay, it's saying list is a class. It's having a function called add. Okay, and you are adding a list inside, isn't it? So, but yeah, that's the beauty. You can see plus operator here you're using. That's merging this, or else you can directly call dot underscore underscore add. Both are one and same only. Dot underscore underscore add. And you have used it in the next statement. Okay, both are one and same only. Okay, I have used it in the next statement. So that is there. Then you are printing days colon. Then you are mentioning this date. Then another syntax is you can directly call underscore underscore add also. Okay. So in that case, let's see the output so that it will be easy to explain. So you can see it's printing days colon. So all these days Monday till Sunday, and then you're basically saying days plus weekends. Your means days plus weekends is exactly same as weekdays dot add weekends. So it's printing the same thing again. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like this. Okay, that is there. And then basically day indices here, day indices, and you are passing these values 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 7. Okay, so you are defining different indices here 1 to 7, and there is a function called zip. Okay, you are zipping element wise. Okay, and zip function takes two lists. Days is a list, days indices is also another list, to zip the elements index wise. Okay, so you can see day in the next statement you have printed like zip days and day indices, and you are basically saying list of zip. So what it is doing, otherwise if you don't call list of zip, what it will print? I think it will create a dictionary. I feel like that it's zipping the elements. So it's creating a zip object. Zip is a different type of object here. So that's why I just converted that to list. That's why I just converted it to list. Zip days and days indices is creating a list of tuple of 2 elements. Okay, this parenthesis is used for tuple. Okay, square bracket, inside that you have Monday, 1, Tuesday, 2, Wednesday, 3, like that. That's what the zip function is all about. You can zip to list element wise using zip function. And yeah.
For zipping, like indices should be, number of elements in indices should be number of elements in days. 7.
Should be. Let's see if I'm just giving a less element, what happens. I feel it should repeat. Monday 1, Tuesday 2, Wednesday 3, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, Sunday didn't consider. Okay, and that means like both the list should be having exact same number elements. So you can see Sunday is missing here because 7th element I just deleted. So that's why it just removes that. Okay, it only zipped 6 elements, 7th element just ignored. 7th element got ignored. Now since I just mentioned this 7th element, so now you are getting Sunday 7 here. Okay, that is there. Then how to get the first element or head of a list? You can access the elements through index, square bracket 0. Tell, you can say, so all these elements like index starts from 0, ends with size -1. And when you're saying, when you're using negative index, that means it's starting from the last. So it's tricky. Let's understand here. You're saying weekdays. Weekdays is basically a list that having elements Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday up to Friday, right? So you can access the elements 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and you can access the same elements through negative index also. Okay, just like it starts 0th index is Monday, 1 index is Tuesday, 2 index is Wednesday. Similarly, Friday is basically 4 index. 4 is Friday. 4 can also be accessed as -1. -1 is basically last element. Friday you can access it through -1. Thursday you can access as -2. Wednesday -3. Tuesday -4. Monday -5, like that. From starting it is 0 best, from end it is 1 best, -1, -2, -3, like that. Okay, that's why when you call weekdays weekdays head, you mention a weekdays 0, it's printing Monday. Weekdays -1, it is printing Friday, means last element. Okay, that's there. And second element, how to access? Weekdays of 1. Okay, like that. You're checking whether an element exists inside, like you're saying weekdays contains Monday. So we are calling weekdays dot underscore underscore contains Monday. Okay, and you have another syntax also. You can call like this also. Monday. In weekdays also you can call. Both are one and the same only. Okay, Monday in weekdays you can call, or you can call weekdays contains Monday. Both are one and the same only. And then you are basically accessing. Then generally we access the elements from first index to third index. You can say 1 to 4. You can say. So it's accessing all these elements like 1 index, 2 index, 3 index. Okay, 1 index is Tuesday, 2 index is Wednesday, 3 index is Thursday. 4th is not included. Okay, that's fine. Okay, when you are trying to, this is called slicing of list. You just took a slice of that particular list. That slice can be from the beginning, from the end, from the mid also. Okay, so you are saying slice of 3 elements, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, that is basically called slicing of list. And basically weekdays dot size of, okay, size of is basically the size of how many bytes of memory has been used. 80 bytes used. Okay, 80 bytes is used to create that particular list. Okay, that's there. And then basically what happened? Len is a function to get the size of a list. Len is basically used to get the size of a list. And similarly reverse. We are calling weekdays dot reverse. Now weekdays got reversed. Okay, so you can see Friday You can see it's reversed. Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday. Okay, you have to call reverse. The same list will be reversed. You don't have to assign it to another variable. Okay. Similarly, so you have again reverse because you want to get the original list as it is. So you again called reverse. Now basically you are calling index of element. So how to find out the index of particular element in a list. So you can directly call that list.index and you pass the value. Okay, it will store the first occurrence. Okay, that same element can exist multiple times because list doesn't check the duplicate values. So it will check the index of Wednesday. Okay. So then you can iterate the elements of a list. So you can say, so what you're doing for day in days, the same old syntax we're saying for day in days. Okay. So then you take this day, you convert it to string, and what you're doing, you are basically concatenating all these days through this tilde, space. Okay. So you iterate like in a single line, you iterate through each and every day of day, and you concatenate the elements through this tilde. Okay, that is there. These are all examples of comprehensions only. In the same line, you are iterating the elements of a list, and you are applying some operations there. Okay, that's the whole idea here. You iterated through each and every day of days, like Monday to Friday, and you concatenate them through this space tilde space. That's what is printed here. Okay, like that. Any questions till now? Abhishek, Manosis?
Everything going smooth.
Sorry?
Everything going good. It's that this portion.
Okay.
Everything going good. Function I had a issue.
Okay. So that's what basically means. I'm just quickly walking you through because I can take more time on this, but the idea is basically to spend more time on Spark. Python is a pretty old language you can learn anywhere. Spark also you can learn. So the only idea is basically you want to learn Spark from an experienced person. That's why more focus should be on Spark. Okay, so that's there. And next thing is basically we have created a number empty list for I in range 0 to 10 numbers to append. We are calling, we are basically printing that. Okay, so it's printing all these numbers 0, 1, 2 up to 9. Then what you did, list comprehension, we have seen it multiple times. For I in range of 10, it will keep on emitting elements 0, 1, 2 up to 9. So that is each and every element is assigned to I, and you just wrapped it inside a square bracket, which is nothing but a list. And then we are printing it here. Okay, so we are printing it here the second time. Then again, what you did, you used comprehension to iterate each and every element, and then you squared it. Okay, I times I, you just squared it. Here you just simply accept all these elements being emitted from for is being assigned to I, but here you are saying I times I, some aggregation, some binary operations also you applied here. Okay, so now it's creating a list of squares. Okay, like that. That is there, and that is there. And the next thing is basically what you can do here is here we have created a new list called my list, is having numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just to show you the indexes, like I was just saying, you can access the first element with 0th index, 2 with 1 index, 3 with 2 index, in 2 index, like that. Last element is 8, and same thing. And the same thing you can do it through negative indexes also. You can see 9 is accessed through -1 index, 8 is accessed through -2, like that, up to -9. Okay, so these are called list slicing. Means you can slice, you can take a portion of the list by using the appropriate range of elements. Basically, original list you just printed here. Original list is list of 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9. Then you are saying first element is my list of 0. Then you are saying second index is my list of 2, that is third index basically. And then you are saying element from 0th index to 4th index. So 0 to 4, you are saying my list 0:5. Okay, always the last element is exclusive. So 0 to 4, it will take the first 4 elements, it will create a separate list. So elements from 0 to 4, 0 is 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth element is 5. So up to 5 you just extracted. Okay, so these are called slicing. And here you see -7th index, means -7th index is which one? -7th index is this one, 3. Right, -7 is 3. So it should print here. You can see it's printing 3 here. Okay, like that. Then what you're saying, my list.append 10. Append is a function that is always used to append the new element at the last. Okay, that was having 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9, and you are now appending 10, and then you are printing it. Okay, that is there. And then you're saying index of 6. Okay, so you're calling my list.index of 6. So index of 6 is 5, so it's printing here. Okay, then you are sorting the elements. To sort the list, it's like this: new list is equal to 2, 3, 1, 8, 7. You are saying sort. So it's sorting the elements and it's printing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. Sort, reverse, these are very common functions we use here. And pop is a function that is used to pop or basically remove an element from the last. Okay, so you can see I'm just calling that my list.pop. It is removing 10. Okay, so popped element is 10. Okay, to remove a particular element from a list by name. Okay, you can say my list.remove 6. 6th index will be removed. Okay, 6th element I think 7. So you can see after removing 6 means not index, actually the value. Okay, 6 is the value removed here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. 6 has been removed. You have two functions. You have seen pop is a function that is used to remove the last element. Remove is a function is used to remove a particular element there. And insert is a function that is used to insert element at a particular index, inserting 6 at 5th position. Okay, 5th index you are adding 6. Okay, so you removed 6 and then later you added 6 again. Okay, so again it became 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so then count the number of occurrences of an element. You can call count my list.count 1. So 1 is appearing 1, such as printing 1. If a particular element is existing multiple times, you can directly, you don't have to loop it through, you can directly call count of the elements, it will give you the count. Okay, that is there. And extend. Append is a function is used to basically append a single element, but extend is a function is used to extend the list with multiple elements. Okay, 10 and 11 added at the last. Okay, here you can say 10 and 11 I read the last. To reverse we have seen that again. Why I printed it. Okay, reverse list is basically you can reverse it also. Okay, there are a couple of examples on list. It's a commonly used data structure like list is an index collection of elements. So majorly the functions what you saw is basically reverse, sort, and slicing is one of the important aspects, how to get a portion of the list and how to access the elements through positive index as well as negative index. And you saw like zipping multiple lists together, isn't it? And you saw comprehensions, how you can use comprehensions to create a list, iterate a certain iterable and extract the elements and wrap it into square bracket, or you can apply some functions also to each and every element. So all these things are there. Okay, that is there. And yes, that is there. And next thing is basically we can come to set. Set is basically, it's again a mutable collection. Set, as the name suggests, list and set, they are not similar, they are different, completely different. List is basically used to store elements. It doesn't check the duplicates and all. It's store the element at different indexes so that you can access the elements through index. You saw. But here in set, there is no such index concept. You can't access the elements through index. Elements are stored random in a random order, provided it guarantees the data uniqueness. Okay, that's there. And for list, you saw you are using square bracket to create list. But here for set, you are seeing you are using curly braces to create set. Okay, set up. From the moment you say 1, 2, 3, that means it's a set only. Okay, you are printing the set. Okay, so it's not like you should always create a set of similar type of element. You can create a set of dissimilar elements. First one is a float, second one is a string, third one is a tuple. Okay, you can create different type of, you can create a set with multiple type of elements. That's also possible here. And here what you saw in line number 21, we're basically calling set function and pass a string. So it basically take all these characters of that particular string and it will give you a unique list. Okay, so you can see here L is appearing twice, O is appearing twice, L is appearing thrice, O is appearing twice. So these are not appearing multiple times. You can see L is appearing once, O is also appearing once, like that. Okay, so you can pass a list or a string. You can pass a list into a set to get the distinct element. Somebody is saying like get the distinct element from a list. You can simply call set and pass that list inside. Okay, that is there. And basically here we are calling, you are again creating a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and we are printing it. So you can see even though you pass multiple same elements multiple times, but it's just unified that it's all deduped. Okay, the elements are deduplicated. Okay, so that is there. And here you create, that is there. So convert list to set and vice versa. You just call set function and pass list of 1, 2, 3, 2. So it's creating 1, 2, 3. And then you called, what do you call? You called list, and then inside that you passed this, pass that set of elements. The moment you create a set of 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, anyway it created a set of 1, 2, 3 only. But now it's a list. You can see the difference is the bracket. Here it is square bracket, here it is a curly braces. Okay, that is there. Set cannot have mutable elements. You cannot just create a set and inside that pass a list. Okay, you cannot pass a list. So that's why you can see here when we created a set of dissimilar elements, this is a float, this is a string, this is intentionally we have created a tuple, not a list. List is mutable. So set doesn't allow elements to be mutable. Okay, it should be all immutable elements. That's why we shouldn't add any mutable elements to set. Okay, that's another thing, another important feature you can remember. And how to distinguish a set and a dictionary. Both are you are seeing like both are using curly braces, isn't it? Here I created A equal to a empty set actually. We are using curly braces to create set, right? Curly braces is also used to create dictionary, ELA pair. Okay, if you are remembering, if you remember earlier you have used multiple times. Both set and dictionary are created using this curly braces. When you create an empty curly braces, by default it's a dictionary. Okay, that's why you can see if you are checking the type of it saying dictionary. Okay, you feel like you are creating an empty set, but no, it's if you use curly braces, by default it's a dictionary. If you want to create an empty set, then you have to use set function itself. Okay, just like you did in line number 43. If you want to create an empty set, you can say A equal to set empty, then if you just check the data type is set here. But curly braces, empty curly braces means it's a dictionary. Okay, that's there, and then that's there, and now basically you can see my set is basically a set of 1 and 3, and we are printing it, and then what you are doing, my set dot add 2, we are adding. So there you saw append, here it is add. In list you saw append, right? But here it is add. In case of set, the function is add. We are adding 2. Okay, then you are printing, so it become 1, 2, 3. Then you are calling add multiple elements. For adding multiple elements, you saw update. There in list, what you saw? Extend. In list, you saw append and extend. Append is to append one element. Extend is to extend multiple elements or extend with a list. Similar thing. Here you are updating with another list of 3 elements. Okay, so you are seeing like it become 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then basically you can see you can basically add list and set also. Here you see you added a list. Here you are adding a list as well as a set also. This is also allowed. Okay, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Okay, just remember here you have 2 functions, add and update. Add function is used to add a single element. Update is used to append multiple elements as a list or as a set or both. Okay, that is there. And line number 70, what you can see, my set is this 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Printed it. So how to remove element? Okay, for remove element you have 2 functions. One is called discard, another is called remove. Okay, so there is slight different. Discard, like if you're trying to remove an element which exists, then discard will remove it. Remove will also remove it. But one caveat is if an element doesn't exist, if you call discard, it will not give you any error. But if you call remove, it will give you an error. It will say that element doesn't exist. That's the only difference. Okay, discard will basically cleanly exit whether the element exists or not. It will try to remove. If it exists, removed. Not, then no worries. But remove is strict. You're trying to remove an element. If it is existing, you can call remove. If it doesn't exist, it will give you an error. This is the business logic. You have to think of which one to be used there. Okay, that is there. Then union operation, you can apply union of 2 sets. This is a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Union function, union can be used as a single You can use this pipe operator or union function. Both are one and same only. Okay. For union in normal Python, you can use pipe operator or union function. Both are same. Similarly, for intersection, you have AND. So that means that pipe is stands for OR, and is AND, or you can call intersect. Both are one and same only. Or taking the common elements, subtract, minus operator or difference. Similarly, you have symmetric difference, A cap B or asymmetric difference B. Okay, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 means symmetric difference will remove the difference is basically removing the overlapping record. Here, symmetric difference is removing the overlapping record, but it takes all these elements from both these sets. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see 4, 5 has been removed. It's kind of the little reverse of the union function. Getting a point. Any queries till now? Iterating through a set, you can use the same for loop. Okay, that's there. So these are few examples of set. Okay, so majorly like you can create an empty set using set function, not empty curly braces. Empty curly braces for dictionary, and for adding element add function. For adding multiple elements as a list or set, you can use update function. And you have set operations, union, intersection, set difference, and then symmetric difference and all this. Okay, so this is,
since set will be removing the duplicates, right? Duplicates elements. Any real-time examples will be using in the Spark or data frame already.
it's a common anyway. Like you're working with transaction data, and you know transaction data should be unique. You have created a RDD or data frame of transaction record. So transaction record should be unique. So there you can use, think of using set. And again, like in the same example you have seen there, we have discussed in RDD1 example, if you remember, we are receiving the data from multiple sources, but you have to process them uniquely. Suppose you are a stock consultant, you want to recommend right stocks to your customers so that they can invest and get profited. You want to basically make use of the past or historical trading data. So since this data is available for free, you are consuming the data from multiple sources, because since the data is available for free, you may see like some of the sources are not giving the right data, some data is missing for a particular interval. So for that, you are reading data from different systems, and then you are basically applying the union operation of that and then using it. So that even some data is missing in one data frame or RDD, but the same data is available in other RDD or data frame. So in that case, union operation works. You can basically apply a union operations of that. And there can be many use cases, like somebody has given you two data sets, the last 6 months of data, 6 different files. Okay, so what happened, like the person who just shared the data, he is not very sure that this data is actually every month data. That can be some overlapping. Means the script what he has written, there is some problem. Maybe when you have extracted the Jan transactions, the month of Jan transaction, there are some records from the save also included there. Okay, suppose when you are extracting the save data, there are some Jan records as well as March records are also there. So in that case, what you can think of, so if you're not, if the data provider is not very much sure, so you can say like, yeah, no worry, like I'll take a union of that. Even though there are overlapping records, you can basically take a union of all. So you can get a right data set. Okay, if there is any duplicate, it will take care of that union function, isn't it? So same thing like for intersection and all, you are trying to get some common data. Okay, so these can be the examples.
Siddharth, in real time, we don't use this set as you told previously.
Yeah, these are costly operations.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we can use joins, right?
So joins and set operations different. Joins basically you are joining dissimilar
But
data.
yeah.
But set is you are saying like you are always working on similar type of data,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? Join basically you are joining a customer data with transaction data, but here you are applying a set union of two transactions data or two customers data, isn't it?
Yeah.
So join is for different disparate type of data, but here it is similar type of data. That's what people say, no, it's apple to apple comparison. Means set of apple can be compared with another set of apple. Since the data should be of similar type, then this set operations work. Okay, so that is all. And next thing is basically you can say dictionary. So dictionary is basically, as we are saying, it's a key value pair. It's a collection. It's which is used to store the elements as key value pair. Okay. So transaction ID is the key, transaction amount is the value. Customer ID is the key, customer name is the value. Okay, like that, key value pairs. So here you called empty dictionary. My dict is an empty dictionary. You can use curly braces. And my dictionary of 0 is equal to apple, of 2 equal to mango, of 3 equal to 20. Okay, so you have added 3 elements and then you are printing it. That means key should be integer and value should be string. So you have 3 keys, 0, 2, 3, and 0 is mapped with apple, 2 is mapped with mango, 3 is apple mapped with 20. Okay, so just like set, it also supports you with similar type of elements. Okay, values can be of different types and all. And what was that? Creating empty dictionary you saw here, so curly braces, and dict sample is equal to fruit mango 1:168 as a list. Okay, it also supports dissimilar type of elements. And how to access the elements? Exactly same as the syntax of your. Okay, so here there are multiple ways to create dictionary, especially calling the Python dict function. Here you will use this curly braces to define key value pair. Okay, here you call dictionary. Dict, inside that you pass this curly braces of this. Both are one and same only. And here you call dict, inside that you pass a list of tuples. Okay, list of tuples you pass, list of tuple 1 comma mango, 2 comma pawpaw is what I'm not sure. So this is how you can create these are the different syntax to create dictionary. Okay, so that is there. And this is again, you can see 1: student 1. This is a nested dictionary, you can see. Okay, 1: is the key and value is again another dictionary. Value is again another dictionary. Student 1, Nicola, student 2, John, student 3, Mercy. Then 2 is again a key and value is again key value pair. This is again another dictionary. This is also allowed. Okay. Similarly, dict of sample is company Toyota model Primayo year 2012. How to access the element? First printing it. So it will print all these details. And then you are saying dict sample of model. Okay, how you're accessing the elements of a list. Within square bracket, you mention the index, but here there is no such index concept. Rather, you have to access the elements through key. Okay, dict sample of model. Okay, like that. Dict sample capacity. How to add elements? You can mention like the dictionary of that key equal to some value, like that. Again, you are adding some updating a value. Updating the value also same thing. There is no such insert or like add, append or add or extend or update function. Rather here you can directly mention that dictionary square bracket or key equal to value. If that key exists, it will override it. If that key doesn't exist, it will simply add it. Okay, that's the whole idea here. Okay, so that is there. And how to remove elements. So delete del dictionary of year. Okay, it will remove it. It's a little different syntax. Delete dictionary of key, like that. Removing elements, you just remove the capacity. Okay, like that. Number of elements in the dictionary. Okay, so there is two functions. One you saw delete function, another is pop function is also there. Pop function is also used to remove a particular element. Okay, then you remove this capacity. Here is also removed, and capacity is also removed. Okay, so two functions, pop function is used and del function is also used. Then basically what you did for k comma v in dictionary sample items, then you are printing k comma v. So it is basically to iterate the elements of key value pair items. You can see, right? They are also used. Remember when we are using unpacking operator double star. Sorry, double star is basically used to pass named parameters. There we are using items. This is the items because it's a dictionary. Okay, that is there. We are adding some element. We are updating here. I think model equal to market. We change the model from Gemini to model market. Keys, we can call keys on a dictionary to get the list of keys. Okay. Keys you can see dictionary keys is basically it's printing all these keys. They come here in model. You can iterate just like items is the function you saw, it's giving both key value pair. Similarly, keys is the functions to give all these keys. Okay, so these are a couple of examples on dictionary. Anybody having any query on this? Sandeep, Viharika, anybody?
Yes, I do have, Siddharth.
Yeah, please.
What are the in practical sense? How would we use dictionary, list, set? Could you just aggregate with one example? Like what is the practical implementation that I want to understand?
That's what I was saying. No? In every other section that I just mentioned, when you are getting data from multiple type of source, multiple sources for the data is same, and you have to process them uniquely. You can make use of set operations there. And list is anyway, you don't have to store the elements uniquely. You just keep on appending the elements, and you can access it through the index. You can think of using list. And apart from that, the set is basically used to store the elements as uniquely. We just discussed. List is for storing the elements in different index so that retrieving of elements becomes faster. You can directly access the element through the index, which is not true for set. So it doesn't have any index concept. You have to always iterate through and check the element. And in dictionary, it's always key value pair. Just an enhanced or another variant of list. You can see in list elements are stored at different indices 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always fixed. But suppose you have certain scenario, you don't want to store the elements at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like we saw this example, you have a vehicle and vehicle have different information like model, year of manufacturing, okay, and price and all this. So you want to store these elements, which data structure will be appropriate? Will you create a list and store all these elements at different index? You can, but how to access it? So sometimes you are trying to access a model, but you access a second index, which is giving price. So you'll get confused. Rather, is there any way to store them not at index 0, 1, 2, 3 level, rather at some key level? So for that, we have this concept of dictionary, where you have option to store the data as key LPA. You can store the elements not at different index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, rather the index are here keys, and keys are unique here. It's like in list, indexes are unique 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Similarly, in dictionary, index keys are unique. Okay, so these are the things like you'll be like every time a problem statement has been given, so you have to think and you have to analyze which data structure will be appropriate for this. Okay, so a common question comes to my mind, like suppose you have been given a list of numbers, okay, and let me send that question. Say somebody has given you a list, say 1, 2, 7, 5, 6, 5, 8, 7. Okay, so I have given you a list and just find out which is the first number repeated in that particular list. Okay, which is the first number repeated in this list. Okay, I just think you a problem statement. Just try to think and analyze which data structure you'll be using here. Okay, somebody has given you a list. It's a common interview question. I have faced it multiple times. You have a list of numbers 1, 2, 7, 5, 6, 5, 8, 7. You can see the duplicate elements are 7, 6, 5, right? So 7 is the first element which is getting repeated, isn't it? So write a program to find it out. Getting my point? Think like what is the logic you'll be implementing. Okay, so when you're facing these kind of questions, you'll automatically get to know like what to use here.
Siddharth, I have one question.
Yes, yes.
So in JSON file, that is also key value pair, right?
Correct.
So those elements can be accessed in same way as dictionary, or we have some another way to process that JSON file?
Yeah, you have to use the JSON library. It's a predefined library available, import JSON, and you can use JSON.dump, JSON.parse. The functions are used to basically parse a JSON and as well as write a data as a JSON and all this, but you can't compare it with a dictionary and all. Though it's a key value pair, but it's not comparable with dictionary. Dictionary has a couple of other variants like your keys should be unique and all, but there is no such restriction. It's just a text file and the data is stored as key value pairs there. Okay, but on that thing like key value pairs.
Okay. So means are you going to cover any examples where you will be reading JSON file and other, because that is pretty common nowadays?
Yeah, JSON, in data frame also you have examples, JSON parsing examples. Yeah, I can give you some example maybe. Just remind me next session. I'll show you some example how to parse JSON. But remind me at least 1 hour before the session, okay?
Okay.
So that I'll
Sure.
create example for you.
Sure. I will remind you. Thank you.
Okay. Or else I'm clever. I'll give you assignment too. So what I can do, so you have a JSON tree. Say first name, colon, Kishore. and last name Sinha. Then address. Address is again a nested JSON having the strict. Then the value is Sarjapura. City. Bangalore. Okay. Pass this JSON. Okay. These are the two assignments. Okay. So I've given you a JSON tree. You have to read this and you have to pass it. You can just create a simple string and you can pass it using JSON library. Okay, that's the assignment. Tuples like initiated is a very small example. Okay, you can see just tuple is the only collection which is immutable. All this rest of the things are basically mutable. Dictionary, list, that all are mutable. Only tuple is immutable. You can see personal info, start a 33n. Okay, tuple is a collection of heterogeneous type of elements. Same analogy when you create a table in relational database. A table can be having multiple columns of multiple types. Name is string, age is integer, salary is float, like that. So here you can see each record can be, sometimes it is called, each record is called as row or tuple also. Same thing here called personal info is a tuple having first name, last name, age and gender. We are actually calling length to get the size of the list. Then you can assign a tuple, you can assign a tuple to multiple variables. That's what we have done. First name, last name, age, gender, 4 variables we have created and we assign that tuple. Okay, that is also available. Then you created a list of key values, list of tuple of 2 elements. That is also available. And then you can iterate for p in pair, print format p of 0, p of 1. For p in pair, print this format star p also is there. Star p is the unpacking operator, if you remember. It will unpack it and it will print it. Okay, that is there. Printing twice. Then again you can call in this for field or key comma value in pair, and you are also printing that. All these 3 syntax are printed here. For syntax, second output is same, we're just printing them. Okay, then star a comma is equal to rostic1. Packing means you are actually creating a list of, you can see the data type is becoming list. This syntax is used to create a list but using star operator. There are different syntax. Not worry much, like just for knowing sake. In interview nobody will ask you what this will return and all. Just for knowing some tricky syntax here in Python. Okay, you just take it as fun, then you will be really liking this. Okay, so then you have for first star rest in, you have created a list of 2 tuples and you are iterating them, printing first, printing all these elements. First is 1 and then rest is 2, 3. Then first is 4, rest is 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, you can see for first star rest in this, it's a list of 2 elements, 2 tuples. In the first iteration, you are getting this tuple. Okay, so when you are calling first, it's getting a first element that is 1, and star rest is rest of the elements 2, 3. Similarly 4, 5, 6, 7. First time it is first is 4. Rest of the elements are 5, 6, 7. Another syntax rest. Okay, so these are all about your collections. Just spend some time. Okay, so people ask what's the difference between basically list and tuple. Okay, so first difference is basically list is mutable and tuple is immutable. And what's the practical uses? You can just say like that. In RDMS, each table is having multiple rows. Each rows is also referred as a record or tuple, because tuple is a collection of dissimilar type of elements. And basically that's the whole objective, because of which tuple has been created in all these languages, to create a collection which has multiple types of elements. But whenever we are talking about lists, that though they support heterogeneous type of elements, but we create similar type of elements in lists, similar type of elements in sets, like that. Okay, so that is there. In next session, we'll be discussing about the OOPS concepts and generators. Okay, OOPS concepts and generators. And just please just work on the assignments. Okay, there only you will learn the things. Otherwise, I'll be running 100 programs, but how useful it is. And yeah, you can just remember the things. You can practice it. Everybody just try to write the program by your own. You see that a program has been written as tuple demo. You create tuple demo 2, write the program line by line and execute it. Okay, if you want to crack an interview in 2.5 months, trust me, follow this approach. You'll be super confident. By the end of 2.5 months, you remember half the program itself. Okay, you can confidently go to any interviews. Okay, if you want to see the result quickly, it's a proven result. Okay, I also follow the same thing whenever I pick up new topic. I self-type the program. I just don't copy paste, because I'm putting effort means I will be expecting, I will be remembering it for a longer time. So I self-type everything. Okay, that's a proven technique. I've seen from many people I've heard. If you want to remember for a long time and fast, let's put some effort. Okay, that's there. We'll again connect on Wednesday, right? Morning only. Yeah. Okay, we'll be. So Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday, yes, sir. Morning session only. Only this weekend, let's connect in the evening. Otherwise, weekday anyway, morning only. Evening is not possible. Okay. So thanks everybody then. We'll again connect Thursday then.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Bye bye. Good night.